Hi, welcome to Lesson 5. This lesson will focus on reading comprehension, whether or not our students are able to understand and make meaning of what they are reading. Certainly for many of us, this is the culminating assessment. Do our students understand what they're reading? Because they can sometimes read the words, but if they're not making meaning of it, then it's not going to get them to the place they need to be. So this is, of course, a very important part of this course, and making sure that we best understand how to assess student comprehension. Of all of the things that we try and assess with our students, comprehension is the most difficult. It is a cognitive process, which means it's happening in the student's head. And so there's nothing that we can see to determine whether or not students are comprehending something. So we have to find ways for them to show us whether or not they are comprehending or understanding their reading. Of course, what we ask them to do to demonstrate that can also be a part of this whole process. If we ask students a question and they respond verbally, their ability to verbalize certainly has an impact on whether or not they can share what it is that they understand from the reading. Same thing with writing, and actually in many cases to a greater degree. If we ask students to write down information about what they read, then that writing is another piece of the puzzle. Is it that they didn't understand or they didn't comprehend what they read, or did they not have the writing ability to explain their thinking? So there are lots of things that go into this, which is why it can be so difficult to assess comprehension. The other piece that we add to this puzzle is there are levels of understanding or degrees of comprehension. It's not necessarily, yes, a student comprehended the text, or no, they didn't. It's to what level or to what degree did the student understand components of the text. Was it all of the text, some of the text, the literal components of the text? So all of those play into this, which is what makes it such a difficult assessment. There are many ways that we assess comprehension. Some of the more common ways are simply to ask questions, whether we ask them verbally or in a written format. We simply ask the student to tell us what they remember about their reading, to answer specific questions tied directly to the text that they read. Sometimes those take the form of specific questions, and sometimes we just more generally ask the students to tell us about what they read or to retell the story that they read. Both of these kind of call on the same component again. They need to be able to verbalize or write down their thinking so that we're able to see whether or not or to what degree they understood the text. Another common assessment is called a closed assessment. And I'm sure that most of you are familiar with this. You've perhaps used it with students, you've perhaps used it yourself in your reading instruction. But this is the process where a paragraph or a bit of text is laid out and certain words are removed. And based on context clues and your understanding of the text that is there, you need to supply the word that best fits there, that actually makes sense. So we're going to practice one of these just kind of for fun, for you to see what that's all about, because I think once you do it, you can easily see what the benefits are to that, but also what some of the drawbacks might be, or some of the limitations in using that type of assessment. Regardless of the type of assessment that we are using to assess comprehension, when we get the results from that, or we get the data from that assessment, we then have a whole bunch of additional questions to ask. If the student did not comprehend to the degree or to the level that we were hoping they would, is it because they couldn't decode, they couldn't actually read the words that were in the text? Was it a lack of prior knowledge. If you think about asking students to read about a topic that they are very interested in, they're probably going to have a much easier time than if we ask them to read a piece of text that they have no prior knowledge, no background to bring into that. So to what degree did that have an impact on their comprehension? And we also need to think about what are they doing as they're reading when they are having difficulty. Do they have strategies that they're using? Are they going back and rereading if they don't understand a section? Are they asking themselves questions as they read the text? All of those strategies that we know as reading teachers, we work with students, we teach them those strategies, but are they using them? We don't know. And to what degree does that have an effect on their ability to comprehend? So again, that the level of trickiness, the level of complexity when we are assessing comprehension is very high. There are lots of things to take into consideration when we are assessing comprehension. So for this lesson, you'll need to do a comprehension assessment with one or both of your field experience students. Once again, there are many available. Some are more formal, some are less formal. You can select what you believe is most usable, makes the best sense for the student that you're working with. I want you to think about the purpose as you are selecting an assessment. What is it that you want to know about this student's in terms of comprehension, and what assessment will best align with that? And once you get the data from that assessment or those assessments, then think about all of the things that go into comprehension and what are some of the factors that may have affected the level of comprehension that was evident in the assessment results. Again, it's complex. There are lots of things that go into it. So this is a good opportunity for you to really dig deep and think about what are all of the factors that may or may not have come into play as this student was doing the assessment. For this lesson, you will actually do a cloze assessment. It's in Blackboard. It's called the Honeybee, and what you need to do is open the file. It's a document that has a couple of paragraphs about the honeybee, and words are omitted throughout, and you just need to read through that and write in what you think the most appropriate words are that would fit in there, and then the answers are in another document. Please do that, and then think about what are the strengths of a cloze assessment and what are some of the limitations. Then you have a chapter to read in Assessment for Reading Instruction Text, all about comprehension. And your work with your student this week is to give them a comprehension assessment. Again, select one that makes sense for the student that you are working with, and then complete that analysis. As you're doing that analysis, I really am encouraging you to think deeply and carefully about what are all of the factors that may have come into play as you were administering this assessment. This is just a quick picture of what the cloze assessment looks like, the honeybee that I'm asking you to do. This is exactly what you'll see. You need to read through this and figure out what do you think should be in blank 1, blank 2, blank 3. So it's just a chance for you to kind of practice it a little bit and think about the strengths and weaknesses. So as always, contact me with any questions you might have, and we will see you soon.